Here we have to find the derivative of this function. So let me rewrite this function like this. I rewrite it as e to the log of this same function here, and in that case I can also rewrite it as arc cosine of 2x log natural log of the cotangent of 1 over x squared. I can rewrite it like this. Okay, so I have to find the derivative of this function. I find it more comfortable to write it like this because the derivative of an exponential is easier to calculate without having to remember too many rules. And the derivative of this is equal to the same exponential, so e to the same argument, arc cosine of 2x, logarithm of that. But remember that this function is also equal to this, so I can also rewrite it like this, cotangent of 1 over x squared to the power arc cosine of 2x, and then I have to take the derivative of the argument of the exponential. So I have the derivative of the arc cosine of 2x times the logarithm of the cotangent of 1 over x squared, and then I have plus the arc cosine of 2x times the derivative of the logarithm of the cotangent. So I have logarithm of the cotangent of 1 over x squared, and I have to take the derivative of this. Okay, so in order to find the result, we have to carry out two calculations. This first one for A and the second one for, let's call it B. So we have to calculate the derivative of the arc cosine of 2x. Let's call it y. So we have no, sorry, let's call it g because y is already our function here. So let's not create any confusion. So let's avoid getting confused. We have g. Let's call it g. G of x is equal to arc cosine of 2x, which means that the cosine of g is equal to 2x. From here, if we take differentials, we have minus sine g dg equal to 2 dx, right? And from here, we can derive dg over dx, which is equal to minus 2 over sine g, and this is equal to minus 2 over the sine of g is equal to the square root of 1 minus cosine squared g. And in this case, okay, you have to remember in general that the sine of g, the sine of a function is equal to plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cosine squared. But in this case, we have to choose the plus sign. Why is that? Well, because if we have the arc cosine is defined. The arc cosine gives values in the interval 0 to pi. 0 to pi like this, so not 2 pi, but I mean from 0 all the way up to pi. Okay, so in this interval here, and in this interval the sign is positive, so that's why we have to choose the plus sign. Okay, so that's just some intuition behind that. It's not something very intuitive sometimes if you do the calculations, because you have to remember all the definitions for the arc cosine, the arc sine, and so on and so forth, the inverse trigonometric functions. But this is how you can do it. So let me also rewrite this here. This is equal to minus 2 divided by the square root of 1 minus cosine squared, but the cosine of g is equal to 2x, so it's 1 minus 2x squared. And this is the first result that we have to replace in here instead of a. Okay, so this is what we have to replace here. I'm not going to do it, it is just a simple substitution. And finally, we have to calculate b here. How do we calculate b? That's quite easy. So we have to calculate the derivative of a logarithm. The derivative gives me 1 over the argument of the logarithm, which is cotangent of 1 over x squared, but we also have to remember to calculate also the derivative of the argument. So we have the derivative of the cotangent of 1 over x squared, right? So how do we calculate the derivative of this? So in order to find the result, we have to replace this derivative here. So let me do it below. The derivative of the cotangent of 1 over x squared is equal to, well, we have to calculate the derivative of the cosine of 1 over x squared divided by the sine of 1 over x squared. This is what the cotangent is, right? So this is equal to the sine. So we have the derivative of this ratio. We have to take the derivative of this numerator and multiply it by the denominator and differentiate it, so without taking the derivative of this. So we have minus the sine of 1 over x squared, and we also have to take the derivative of the argument of this, which is minus 2 over x to the third power. That's an easy calculation. And then we have to multiply by sine of 1 over x squared, and then we have minus the derivative of this, which is cosine of 1 over x squared. We have to multiply by the derivative of the argument, which is minus 2 over x to the third power, and then we also have to multiply by this, which is the cosine of 1 over x squared here. And then we have to divide by the denominator here, squared. So we have sine squared of 1 over x squared. And if you factor out this term, you can see that we have minus sine squared minus cosine squared. So we have minus 1 here divided by the sine squared of 1 over x squared. And we also have to multiply by minus 2 over x to the third power. Okay, so this is the derivative of the cotangent of 1 over x squared that we have to, so this result should be inserted in here, and then what you get from this result should be replaced here. Okay, so that's what this is the result of the calculation.